According to South Africa's presidency, Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attend the BRICS conference in South Africa in August. That's by mutual agreement. In March, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin, and South Africa, as a member to the Rome Statute, was required to comply. However, Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov will attend the event instead. To discuss this development, I'm joined now by Professor Everisto Benyera, who is with the Department of African Politics at UNISA. Professor, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And the Russian president's attendance at the summit has been a bone of contention, a political bone of contention. Surely South Africa had no choice but to stop Vladimir Putin from attending because of its signatory status to the Rome Statute.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and good morning to you and to the viewers and listeners. Indeed, the question that we are grappling with here is what happens when politics meets the law. And the status of the ICC warrant of arrest issued against President Vladimir Putin came into focus. My view is that the warrant of arrest is legal but not legitimate. Now, when we are faced with a conundrum of legitimacy versus legality, which test do we apply? I think this is why there are so divided views on what South Africa should do should President Vladimir Putin come. But now that he is no longer coming, I think the disaster has been averted, but only for now. This is a continuation from President Omar al-Bashir, now President Vladimir Putin, and I think we need to put our legal house in order, so to speak, such that in future it is very clear what South Africa does when it is faced with such a very testing test of legality versus legitimacy. Which way should we go, with the law or with politics?
Besides averting a possible diplomatic crisis, where does this decision now leave relations between Pretoria and Moscow, especially with South Africa having refused to condemn Russia in its conflict with Ukraine, which, of course, in itself has annoyed its Western trade partners?
I think South Africa is walking a very tightrope. Its doctrine of neutrality is one that is not convincing in the eyes of many. Hence, others are terming it pro-Russian neutrality. In the meantime, I view the trick by the African leaders to Russia as having this issue high on the agenda, and what is playing out now, I suspect, is what they agreed when President Ramaphosa led that entourage, that peace mission to Kyiv and to Russia. So for now, relations between South Africa and Russia are cordial, they are cozy. In any case, South Africa and Russia enjoy a cozy political relationship of sort where they fight for each other. In such cases, although publicly they display one posture, but privately, I think things are much closer than what they appear to be.
We saw reports of Deputy President Paul Mashatile saying that the Russians were not happy with the decision, essentially in the build-up to the mutual agreement. But what was being discussed behind the scenes was that they were not happy. They wanted Putin to attend, which shows that there really needed to be a lot of pushing behind the scenes to ensure that the mutual agreement is reached. In court papers filed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, he said in them that he feared the declaration of war if Putin were to come to South Africa and indeed be arrested. A decision that had to be considered very, very strategically.
I think we need to put the facts first. So, in 2000, Russia signed the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court, but it later withdrew in 2016, meaning that Russia is no longer a state party to the Rome Statute since 16 November 2016. Additionally, and most importantly, in 2002, Russia passed a law that prohibits its citizens from being extradited to the ICC for criminal proceedings. As a result, Russian citizens are generally protected from being indicted or prosecuted by the International Criminal Court. This is not new. The United States has got a law that is called the American Service Members Protection Act. This law gives President Biden powers to use all means necessary to appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. citizen or allied personnel detained or imprisoned by or on behalf of the International Criminal Court. And we also saw Israel refusing to entertain the thought that its service personnel could be indicted at the International Criminal Court. So what Russia is doing is not new. And for it then to press South Africa to allow President Vladimir Putin to come, I think for them it was an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that they are powerful. President Putin can come into Pretoria and go back to Russia, thereby nullifying these threats for his arrest. And what better place for President Vladimir Putin to defy the West and the ICC other than the ally called South Africa? And of course, South Africa made its own calculations.
Absolutely. What does this now do for South Africa, South Africa's reputation on the international stage and in its way of upholding the rule of law?
South Africa needs, in my view, to proactively look at the legislation and the international agreements that we enter into and ask ourselves, are they in the national interest of South Africa? One case is the Home Affairs case, where there were 22 Afghan nationals that were brought in here in order for them to be vetted whether they fit to go to the United States. It is legal, but it is illegitimate for the United States to do that. So our laws are being used, and I'm quoting them, the Minister of Home Affairs here, are being used against South Africa. Some others even went to the extent of saying that South Africa is an organic state that is now trapped in a constitutional state with all these international arrangements hovering around. And I think we need to take this opportunity. The African National Congress, as the majority in parliament, they must align their political ideologies with the domestic legislation so that these conundrums do not exist. And the Rome Statute has got Article 98 for that provision. So South Africans can actually amend the ICC law in South Africa so that they use Article 98 to consider if they want the various immunities, diplomatic immunity, personal immunity, or even sovereign immunity.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now, and thank you for your time, Professor Everisto Benyera, who is with the Department of African Politics at UNISA.